All right, so today we are starting with margarine. Margarine. Remember the objective of this program is we are exploring market in Africa. That's basically the objective. We're exploring market in Africa. And what that means is that we are trying as much as possible to draw our attention to products with potential in Africa. That means you might need to still do more research on product that is of interest to you. We have about more than 80 products on our list. So we are almost done with it. In another 3 sessions, we'll be done. Today we are looking at margarine. What's the size of import market for margarine in Africa? $419 million. $419 million. Interestingly, Nigeria is Nigeria and Algeria are 12%, 12%. In terms of import volume, then Ghana, 10.5, Egypt, 8.2, Angola, 5.7. Who are the exporters in Africa? Kenya is a major exporter. South Africa is a major exporter. Even though the total export volume for Africa is low, being $85 million. But who are the major exporters? Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Ghana. As usual, you will see South Africa being an importer and exporter, and that's a normal thing. Egypt being an importer and exporter of the same product. Sometimes it could be quality, sometimes it could be specification, sometimes it could be brand, and that can account for the reason why some we import, whereas some we buy locally. Some we import, whereas some we buy locally. So having this volume, now remember one of the things I also propose on this program, that you don't necessarily need to be the producer of this product. If a product has potential and you are interested in selling the product, do your research. Look for those producing it locally and see if you can partner with them. That way you can export that product as a merchant, not necessarily as a manufacturer. As a matter of fact, I am strongly of the opinion that not everybody should be producing. We need more marketers than producers. If we have enough marketers, producers will step up their games. If we have enough marketers, producers will step up their games. Because everybody wants to sell, so everybody wants to produce, but not everybody has what it takes to sell. So if selling is what you're able to get capacity to do, I think it's a brilliant idea. So you can decide to just stay at the marketing side. You don't necessarily have to stay, in a typical value chain of export business or manufacturing company. You have the research and development, you have the production or manufacturing, you have the marketing, and then you have the sales. In that stretch, research and development is headache of the manufacturer. Production, headache sometimes of the manufacturer. In some cases, if you look at a product like Nike is only taking up research and development and marketing. Nike is not the one producing his product, and it's not the one at the sales end, at the delivery end. No. But they are the one in the marketing side and they are the one at the point of research and development. So that means I don't necessarily have to be in all the aspects of the value chain. It's not efficient. It's not efficient. If you are in research and development and you're producing and you're marketing and you're selling, it will be tough for that business to grow if you don't have enough money to have, if you're an SME. Because if you are going to keep all those areas, you will have enough money to set up each department to work independently to be able to really grow the way you probably want to grow. I'm trying to buttress the point that it's wiser for you to consider being a merchant. Being a merchant. Being a merchant. It's wiser for you to consider being a merchant. So if you look at the trend line, you see the trend line is growing because it's food. Who are the competitors? Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, Cote d'Ivoire. Hair product. Hair product. Hair product. This will be cream of different shades and sizes used for hair. Not hair them itself, but anything that has to do with hair in terms of support. Mostly cream. The ladies know other things that are hair product. I don't know them. But I probably only will be looking at cream in terms of hair products. So for hair products, what should be the interest? Do you notice something? That Morocco, that hair product import into Africa is 428 million. Ladies, this is a lot of opportunity for you. 428 million. Now, let me put in perspective, please. $1 million in Nigeria today is about 450 million naira. $1 million. So $10 million is 4.5 billion. $450 million, $100 million will be 45 billion. $450 million will be about over 200 billion. I'm trying to put in perspective the enormity of what we are looking at here in terms of economic value. $428 million is a lot. Because that's over $200 billion Nigerian money and a lot of African money or African currencies. So if you are looking at selling hair products as an exporter from any African country, including Nigeria, maybe you want to consider Morocco or Egypt or Algeria or South Africa, Libya, but you will notice again, as usual, South Africa and Egypt are major exporters. So, which hair product do you think can be exported from Nigeria? Because if Nigeria is importing 4.25%, that means a number of our consumption is local. Because with the population in Nigeria, and Nigeria is importing 4.5% in Africa, it is because we are producing a lot locally. It is because we are producing a lot locally. And that means you can consider export. Because hair product has a market of 428 million. Who are those exporting it? South African and Egyptian. Egyptian take up half. of the $200 million export of this product. Half is a lot. Half is a lot. South Africa also, Cote d'Ivoire, Tunisia, Morocco are all major exporters. And these major exporters are also part of the major importer. Interesting. These major exporters are also part of the major importer. Like I said earlier, the reason why that is brand issue, quality, specification, preference of different buyers, just the way a number of things are produced in Nigeria, but Nigerians still prefer to buy the one from abroad. So we have South Africa, we have Egyptians, we have Cote d'Ivoire, we have Tunisia, we have Morocco being major exporter, and the trend line show that it's growing. Remember, anything that human beings are consuming that is needed for survival of man, we rest assured that the volume will keep growing in Africa because our population is growing. Fruit juice. Fruit juice. I'm glad to see almost a balance. Do you notice something I'm seeing? $490 million in import and $447 million in export. Fantastic. Who are the major importers? Can you see the major importer? South Africa. Major exporter? South Africa. I can see Nigeria being another major importer of fruit juice. Can you imagine? Now, it's interesting to note that in some part of this country called Nigeria, fruits perish. About 30 to 50% of produce in Nigeria perish as post-harvest losses. You know, another area, let me talk a little bit about fruit. There is this concept of dry fruit. You know, before now, the challenge is that nowadays, people are more conscious of what they eat. Nowadays, people are more conscious of what they eat. So because people are more conscious of what they eat nowadays, you know what has happened? Because people are more conscious of what they eat nowadays, you know what has happened? People now snack healthy. And one of the ways that people snack healthy is taking nuts and dry fruits. So you have this kind of product that is fruits and nut mix. I saw it first in the UK, but I've seen a lot now in Nigeria. Fruit and nut mix. It's expensive, but people are buying it. So dry mango, dry orange, dry pineapple. I've seen dry mango, dry orange, dry pineapple, dry mango. Sorry, mango, orange, pineapple, and I think banana. Dry. And they are mixed together with fruits. Sorry, with nuts. Cashew nut, walnut, granite, almond nut, different kind of nut together. Interesting, right? Interesting. It's so important for us to understand the way our world is changing and the way people are changing their diet. You know, most of the fruit juice, a number of them have sugar, and you and I know the importance of avoiding sugar, particularly if you have seen 4 decades, 5 decades and above. You want to be careful of some of those things you eat. You want to be careful of some of those things you eat. And people are much more careful of what they eat today. So, and that's across the world, not just in Nigeria or Africa, across the world. So what that is saying basically is that if Africa is buying this volume of fruit, I strongly also believe fruit snack have potential in Africa. Fruit snack have potential in Africa. So I think you can consider fruit snack. And do you know the interesting thing about this fruit snack? There are machines you can get from China that would dry this fruit over a period of 1 or 2 days. It dries it slowly in a big chamber to be able to maintain some of the vitamins and minerals. Because if the heat is too much, it can destroy the vitamins and minerals. So the heat goes slowly, slowly, slowly to be able to maintain the vitamin and minerals. And this is something that people can do. You know, sometimes when I think how much people want to go into export and someone wants to go and do cocoa, you want to go and do cashew, he will need to spend almost 10 million. Do you know you can set up a factory with 5 million? A whole factory. You can lease the land, get the machine, get your generator, and you have not still finished spending 5 million naira. Lease the land, get container to put on the land. 2 containers, they'll break it into each other, create room inside, put machine there, put generator outside. Factory has started. I know a lady doing that actually. That's why the idea came to my mind. I know a lady that does that. He just leases the land, so it doesn't have a permanent structure. 5 million, factory has started. And people will use 15 million to do raw materials without any value addition to Nigeria. Modern slavery. Someone said when you export commodity, you export jobs and import poverty. You export jobs and import poverty. So imagine setting up a factory with 5 million naira. Because some of these machines, by the time you spend $5,000, you have a machine already. You'll be shocked. So the remaining $5,000 can be used to get other things you need. Can you imagine? But I still, you know, at some point, I said my conclusion was it's not lack of resources that is making us not to want to export value added. Some people say, Dele, you don't know power, infrastructure, this. For me, I think because of power, infrastructure, that's the more reason why value addition should be better. Because with the infrastructure deficit, it increases your cost of even procurement and shipment, such that if you add value, you will have created more margin for yourself. And I'm not saying value addition is easy, but the fact that Nigerians are doing it profitably makes me happy that we can do it. The fact that Nigerians are doing it profitably, not even foreigners now, a lot of foreigners are already doing it. I'm even talking about Nigerians are doing it profitably, make me happy that we can do it. So I look at the bright side. I don't want to look at the challenging side. I don't look at the challenging side. I want to look at the bright side. The fact that some can do it makes every one of us lose excuse of not being able to do it. Unless you can afford it. If you can afford it, then it's worth considering rather than doing commodities. Let's add value. Let's add value. Let's add value. Fruit trend is increasing also, and don't be surprised about that. You should don't be surprised about that. The trend for fruit juice is increasing. Why? Because population is growing. Glass bottles. Glass bottles. Glass bottles. Glass bottles. Glass bottles. Even though the people that do this in Nigeria are very, very few, you can see Nigeria is one of the exporters because there's a company, I think Better Glass, if I'm not mistaken. Better Glass is one of the major companies that I know that does this in Nigeria. Remember my recommendation for manufactured goods that would take a lot of resources, please just apply to be a merchant. A lot of manufacturing company. Do you know, let me tell you something. Do you know a lot of manufacturing companies in Nigeria today are looking for market outside, actually? Some of them, they are so busy with their local market and production, they are not even looking at market abroad. Not because they don't want the market, but they need skill. They need competence and to handle it. And they also, many of them don't mind being an indirect exporter. Many of them don't mind being an indirect exporter. Many of them don't mind being an indirect exporter. An indirect exporter, when you are exporting through someone, you are an indirect exporter. When you are exporting through someone. So that means the NXP, in the case of Nigeria, in Nigerian parlance, the NXP will be processed by another company, not your company. By another company, not your company. So I'm saying that when you are thinking of export, think of export merchant. Are you a banker? You have customers that are producing these things. Maybe your wife can be exporting it while you are still in banking. Or your husband can be exporting while you are still in banking. Leverage on your relationship while you are working to build your business before you leave the job. Leverage on your relationship while you are working to build a business before you leave the job. So some of us have those customers that are producing product that because of your relationship, if you talk to them, they will be interested in giving you a distributorship right. In some countries in Africa, do your research. AFCFTA is starting in January. Do your research. And you can even distribute the product, not just only in Africa, in other parts of the world. You know that sometimes some of us are sitting on opportunities, but we don't even know, which is why we have this session anyway, so that we can challenge ourselves to think about the opportunity around us and see how we can take advantage of those opportunities. And the reason is because we strongly believe at 3 Think Trade Academy that we can do 3 things on the sustainable development goal. Goal number 1, 2, and 9. We can reduce poverty, we can reduce hunger, we can reduce inequality through trade. Because trade can create more jobs. Trade can create more opportunities if we can just grow trade. So look at importance of bottles in case you have to strike a deal with a local producer of glass bottles to be able to export those glass bottles. Algeria is a market you want to consider. South Africa is a market you want to consider. Egypt, Morocco, Zambia, Mozambique, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya are all markets you want to consider. Are all markets you want to consider for export of this product. Who are likely going to be your competitors? Who are likely going to be your competitors? If you want to export, Egyptians, South Africans, Tanzania, Tunisia, Kenya, Nigeria. So can you see that the fact that Nigeria is already exporting this, for me, that's a good news. That's a good news. So that means do your research. Remember, this conversation is to stimulate, this program is to stimulate conversation, stimulate more research to be able to help you to take advantage of those opportunities. To take advantage of the opportunities. To take advantage of the opportunities. You know, there are so much opportunities that we have. The real issue is looking for how to take advantage of it. I'm of the opinion that a low-hanging fruit for anybody who wants to go into export, especially when you are working and you have a little investment, a little fund that you can invest. Low-hanging fruit, low-hanging fruit, low-hanging fruit, for me, is export merchant. Low-hanging fruit for me is export merchant. You can be an export merchant. And I will keep advocating for us to be an export merchant. Do you know there are a lot of SMEs in Nigeria producing different products and looking for people to help them sell it? So why do you want to go and set up another factory when you can just go in them to sell? And do you know the beauty of that? You can, number one, you start with a lesser cost. You don't incur a lot of cost. Then when you have been able to build that market, you can begin to produce yourself. Then you have incentive to get a loan to set up your factory because you already have the market. So it's a way of developing market for yourself and for your business. It's a way of developing market for yourself and for your business. Trend line is growing. Trend line is growing. Trend line is growing. Trend line is growing. Why is the trend line growing? Your guess is as good as mine. Growing population. Growing population is contributing immensely. Is contributing immensely to demand. That is why everybody is looking at Africa. That is why everybody is looking at Africa as a market that is worth considering. As a market that is worth considering. Everybody wants to go there. Butter. 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 You know, we discussed margarine before. Now we are looking at butter in the same class. Now, butter is a dairy product made from milk or cream. Margarine is an oil-based product. It's made of 80% vegetable oil and water, plus flavor rather. Whereas butter is a dairy product made from milk or cream. When the liquid is churned, the butter fat separates from the buttermilk, making it a solid yet acceptable light yellow substance. And this butter, now can you look at, do you see what I'm seeing on the screen? Africa is not producing enough butter. Africa is not producing enough butter. Africa is not producing enough butter. Africa is exporting just $16 million. Look at the demand of butter in Africa. $453 million. Egypt, major consumer. Morocco, another major consumer. Algeria, another major consumer. South Africa, another major consumer. South Africa, another major consumer. Algeria. Okay, Buba Bukari is saying, what is the low-hanging fruit? I said the low-hanging fruit is that, you can start exporting this item by not necessarily incurring the cost of setting up, by being an export merchant. I'm on a crusade for export merchants in Nigeria. I'm on a crusade for export merchants in Nigeria. Because I think many people, two major mistakes many people make on export. Number one, a typical exporter thinks he has to do commodities. Number two, a typical exporter thinks he has to be the one manufacturing the product. Whereas majority of exporters in the world are mainly merchant. Most manufacturers don't export their product. They don't even have the time. Most manufacturers, either they do contract production or they do indirect export. Either they do contract production for people or they do indirect export. So when they produce the same brand, but they are producing for people, someone else is exporting it. That is what makes it efficient. That's why when I started, I broke down the value chain from research and development to production and manufacturing to marketing to sales and delivery. The sales, marketing and sales and delivery is where export is. In fact, the sales and delivery is the real export itself, because that's where the actual shipment is. The marketing is another thing you can combine with it. Leave the research and development and manufacturing for someone else to handle. You handle the other part. I'm basically saying that's a low-hanging fruit and that we need to be a bit more strategic as we approach export so that we can reduce our cost of entering into the business. Who are the major exporters? Even though we're exporting so small, South Africa, Egyptian, Ugandan, Moroccan are the major exporters. And those are the people you have to compete with. Those are the people you have to compete with. Those are the people you have to compete with if you are thinking of exporting butter. Look at this product. It's called edible offer. Do you know what edible offer is? Do you know what edible offer is? Do you know what edible offer is? You see the internal organs of animals. It's called edible offer. Internal organs. You know what we call roundabout? What we call roundabout in Nigeria? Roundabout in Nigeria. Those intestine, those liver, those kidney, internal viscerals, internal organs are offers. The edible one. Now, just think about this, that the world is trading edible offer at this level in Africa alone, 380 million imports of intestine. There are so many research you have to do, please. You know, I don't know, you know, you know, when you look at some of these things, you just realize that there's so much opportunity in our society that it's only what you look for that you find. That's what I've discovered. You only find what you are looking for. If you are not looking for it, you will not find it. Intestine, $380 million. Another opportunity for export. Another opportunity for export. So if you are looking at exporting it, since we have a lot of cattle in Nigeria, if you want to begin to trade in this, Egyptian, South African, Cote d'Ivoire, Angola, Ghana, Republic of Congo, Gabon are major importers. Africa is doing so little, just about $10 million, very little. And South Africa and Uganda are the major people there. South Africa and Uganda are the major people there, coupled with Egypt. If you add South Africa, Uganda, and Egypt together, you have already done almost more than 85%. More than 85%. More than 85%. Edible offer. Of course, we expect that the trend should grow. Of course, we expect that the trend should grow. Of course, we expect that the trend should grow. Major importers of edible offer. Who are the major importers of edible offers? Egypt, South Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana. Who are your competitors? South Africa, Uganda, Egypt. Someone said we are high consumer of what we have. I agree with you. Let me see, I agree with you. I'm only saying these are export opportunities. So we don't just consume them alone, we also consider them for export. We also consider them for export. Malt. 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 Now, I have a friend that export malt to South Africa from Nigeria. He's an export merchant. He's an export merchant. But it's also interesting for me to see that Nigeria also import malt. Although the guy export malt drink anyway. The guy export malt drink. The guy export malt drink. You know, malt is a germinated cereal grain that has been dried in a process known as malting. The grain is made to germinate by soaking it in water and is then halted from germinating further by drying in with hot air. Malt is a germinated cereal grain that has been dried in a process known as malting. How is that done? The grain is made to germinate by soaking it in water and then halted from germinating further by drying it with hot air. So it's this malt that is being imported. Now, the grain they use for those malt are available here. Sorghum is one of them. Sorghum is one of them. And it's available here. And it's available here. So we can export malt. By the way, out of the 451 million market in Africa, Nigeria is already taking up 13.1. South Africa 14.1, Ethiopia 10.7, Angola 9.7, Cameroon 7.8. And the exporter, can you see the export of malt in Africa is so small? Mauritius, Mauritania, Egypt, South Africa, Kenya, major exporters. Before we leave today, let's discuss potato. I'm happy to see that potato is having import 338, export 312. Import 338 and export 312. If you want to play in that space, you need to go and meet Egyptians, particularly Irish potato. You know, we have not done a lot about our sweet potato in terms of export, but there's a huge opportunity for it. In fact, I heard that sweet potato is more nutritious than Irish. However, Irish have popularized theirs very well, much more than the sweet that is found in this part of the world, such that we prefer even this Irish to sweet now. Anyway, who are the importers of this product? The importers, Egyptians, Algerian, Morocco, Senegal, Libya, Tunisia, Mauritania, Cote d'Ivoire, Mozambique. And then the exporter of potato, Egypt, South Africa, Morocco. You know, one of the things we are going to do later on is each of these countries, we are going to explore them. All the 54, 55 countries in Africa, we're going to explore them. We're going to look at the market in that country. We're going to look at their major import. So then we're going to look at major import of each country. That means apart from the common one we are seeing, what other thing do this country import? We're going to see